pjnet.tv, 9 o'clock, East Coast, United States. Our bumper's running. We are recording. We are streaming. We've got our special guest standing by in the green room. And we've got people ringing the bell to get in the chat room constantly. So, we will count down to Studio 17, starting now. Well, good evening and welcome to this Thursday edition of pjnet.tv. I am Coach Prasick, and it is my honor to sit in this place Monday through Thursday night and bring you some of the finest people that just good folk. You know what I mean by that? It's the second Thursday of the month, and we reserve that day for Katherine Pasour, who is no stranger to the pjnet.tv chat room. By the way, if you are watching this on perhaps Twitter, perhaps Facebook, perhaps YouTube, we certainly are glad that you have tuned in, and we invite you to watch the same thing at, just take your browser and point it to pjnet.tv, and you can not only watch it, you can enjoy the fellowship in our chat room, the best kept secret on the internet. Don't you love the lovely pictures that are on display? Those are from KatherinePasour.com. And I could tell you all about them, but I think it would be better if you got an authoritative opinion on them, because she blogs at KatherinePasour.com. I'll put that on the screen for you. And I think you'd be blessed if you went and checked it out. What do you think, Katherine?
I think so too. And Mark, I can only see this great big zero in front of me.
Well, it's frozen on your end. It's fine on this end. So if you want to mute your camera real quick and unmute it, we can do that again, that little exercise, and unmute it and see if that didn't help a little bit.
No, it happened right. There we go.
There you go. Trust me, everything is fine on this end.
All right. Well, that's good. Glad you're there.
Just trust the technology. Trust me. It's okay.
And you got to trust the technician too.
Have faith in God.
Yes. Oh, so these pictures. That one is my poor pitiful flowers after the storm, and then that one is one day of sunshine. And that just amazes me so much that nature can recover so fast. You know, we kind of mope around when we're feeling down and out. And
well, those plants, the sequence that's coming up right now is the before and after, and that song, as the deer panteth for the water, the flowers panteth also.
They panted for the well. They enjoyed the water, but they were really joyful with the sun. And that one's a sunrise. I love sunrises. As anybody that ever reads my blog knows, I just love it because it's a promise of a new day. It's a blessing. Every day is a blessing, and the sunrise just gives us that hope of a new and glorious day. So I just love sunrises.
It's the quiet time of the day too, and it's good to have a cup of coffee and just look out over that beautiful North Carolina sky.
Absolutely.
We have some pretty skies here in Florida from time to time, but the mountains help.
Yes. Of course, I'm right in the middle of the state, but it's still pretty country in the Piedmont, flatlands, except our land's here not really flat. We have hills and gullies. You know what a gully is?
Right. There's hills and there's gullies.
Yeah. And we have lots of gullies. So not much flatland right here on my farm, but there's plenty around.
Looks like a gully run right there.
There's a gully right there made by we had a torrential rainstorm on that one, and that was a little road that leads down to one of our pastures, and it did not look like a road that day. It was a little stream, all on its own. So, but now, this time, go ahead.
Well, there's one picture here at the end. I mean, I think everybody can identify what those things are, at least in some sense. But this picture is obviously somebody dear to your heart, and for some reason, and it was the inspiration for your most recent blog, which is actually the first in a series of what, five? What's it?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to be yet. I've got a lot of ideas for it, and I've started on the second one, but probably at least 4 or 5, maybe more.
Well, who is this fine picture of?
This fine looking lady,
Yeah.
that is my great grandmother. And she began teaching school in 1860 and had a long career during a time period when actually women did not normally teach school after they married. But for some reason, it worked out that she kept on teaching. And she had 6 children, and all of them became teachers sometime during their lifetime as well. But she was the beginning of a legacy in my family. Her name is Kate, and she taught both in Virginia and in North Carolina in academies as well as in public schools. And the public schools were in sort of the infancy at that time. And I'll talk more about that in a later blog about the founding of our public school system. But she had experience in both. But she was the beginning of the legacy in our family. Then her daughter, who was also named Kate, taught. And then my mother was a school teacher. And then I'm the fourth in the generational sequence to decide that teaching is our vocation. And it is a vocation. It's a calling. And I think we're all called in some way to serve. And teachers have a special gift that they try their best to share with their students, although some of them most reluctantly. And I mentioned in my blog that she was that was back in the day when everybody wrote letters. Even if their children lived just a little ways down the road, they still wrote letters. I mean, it was before telephone and certainly before.
Yeah, back when the postage stamp was a penny.
Absolutely, yes. And they saved all their letters. And so, yes, you're right. It was a penny. Now, it might take several days to get there, but that was their best and most dependable. But she wrote letters to all of her children, and in it she would talk about her love of teaching, but also the lament that our very own teachers nowadays will also lament about students' lack of motivation, or her concern that she wasn't reaching all of her students like she should be doing, or the concern about funding. And if we think teachers' pay is not quite the most lucrative career now, it should have been called then. Of course, the terms are so much shorter. It might be just 3 months, and teacher might make $15.
There are some professions, it is said, that you don't do it for the income, you do it for the outcome.
Absolutely. And then people don't go, well, I'll just speak to myself, myself and those that I know. None of us went into the career for the money, because for the amount of education that's required, your salary is much lower comparatively than other folks with that same education. So no, we don't go into it for the money, and it's a challenging career.
Well, Catherine, I've been given in quite authoritative terms the 3 main reasons that teaching is a good profession.
Okay, let's hear it.
June, July, and August.
And you are absolutely right. Plus Christmas vacation, because it's usually 2 weeks. So, oh yes. And if anybody ever tries to tell you that the teachers are not just as joyful on holidays and vacation and snow days as the children are.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of trouble with those in Florida.
Well, I know, but we do have a little snow in North Carolina. And we're in the South, so a flake of snow, will close schools. So.
Well, we bury our water pipes down here about 1 spade deep. That's plenty. So if it comes a hard freeze, it doesn't have to snow. A hard freeze means it was 30 degrees overnight. Water pipes burst and schools close. But you all, she was from that generation that walked 7 miles to school uphill in the snow. And the return trip, I think, was also uphill, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, probably so. Probably so. But it does remind me that teachers really, really love their students and love the job that we do. But the thing that I really wanted to focus on in this particular blog message was not just the teachers. And of course, she and my grandmother and mother inspired me to become a teacher. But it's not just the teachers that teach our children. You know, we all have an impact on the children, whether we're out in public and we are behaving in a way that demonstrates kindness and integrity and honesty and trustworthiness. Children that just happen to see us, I mean, they can tell if we're behaving in a way that exemplifies what we state our beliefs are, and we have a great impact on other children in our family. If we're in a church family, we have a huge impact. So I was trying to make the point in this first blog that we are all responsible for the nurturing of our children. Whether we have children or we don't have children, we still have an impact on every child with whom we come in contact, all the way up to their adulthood. Because my friend JD talks about having some young adults come and work with him, and we had the same thing when I grew up on a tobacco farm, and thankfully we don't have a tobacco farm anymore. But we had lots of teenagers that came and worked for us, and we helped them learn a good work ethic, and we treated them with respect, and so we had an impact on them. So we all have influence on the way that our children grow and develop and turn into good citizens.
You were saying when you opened up that your great grandmother was concerned about some of the same concerns that we have in education today. Students that aren't motivated. So many things have not changed, yet so many have. I didn't live through it, but there was a day when teachers were held to a code of conduct, not only in school, but off campus. If a single teacher had someone come in their house of the opposite sex, that you could lose your job just for inviting someone into your home. Those were no-nos back then.
Yes, had some really, really strict rules, and yes, it was a little different. But still, I think the more things change, the more they stay the same, because it's not quite what I think ministers go through, living under a microscope with everybody watching every move that you make. But being a teacher is similar, because they're not supposed to mess up, because they're held up to be a role model. So they're not supposed to make mistakes.
Well,
so when one does, it's news.
Well, and they make an example of them. I can remember the day when teachers would enforce social norms. If you got in trouble at school, it was not necessarily academic, and you would be taken out in the hall and given a paddling.
Ooh.
And it seems as if, well, I feel sorry for teachers in some ways, because they will officially say that we're not here to socialize your children. Well, it's inevitable. School is a social environment. Humans are social creatures. Yet they are not given the tools to socialize. Anything they do, as you mentioned, is under a microscope. I remember starting our day with the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. What happened to that?
Well, that is something we're going to discuss in a later one, a later blog. I will get to it, but let me go back to what you said about socialization. That really is one of the purposes of school. They may not broadcast it from the rooftops, but teaching our children to get along with one another, to work together, to be cooperative, to fit in. That happens in the school system,
Well,
definitely.
manage conflict, develop social networks, develop relationships. A lot of these are natural functions of being in school. Not that it's school; it's the fact that you get a group of people together. Social things happen, and some are healthy, and well, some are not.
Or some are not. But you have to have that type of environment, of cooperative environment with mutual respect. You have to have that in school, just like you do in the workplace, or you can't accomplish anything. And so they might not come out and say, yes, we're going to teach your child how to be social and get along with everybody. But it's there. And it has to be, because then you can't, if you don't have that, if you've got a classroom that's just chaos with the children up running around all over and they can't get along with each other and they're fighting all the time, there's no learning going on in that classroom. So you do have to learn to get along with one another and love one another.
Well, there was a dress code, there were norms, there were expectations, and they weren't all academic. Okay, they were behavioral, they were social, they were, you had PE. Remember, not PE, recess. Remember that?
I do.
That one's kind of going to the wayside also, isn't it?
Because of the greater emphasis on testing and academic achievement, a lot of things have gone by the wayside. Things that are important, cultural activities are important, and physical activity is important, because if our children are so unhealthy that they can't be physically active or don't get enough sleep, don't eat right, they don't function well in school either. So it should be a holistic approach where we are really concerned with educating the whole child, not just their brain, but keeping their body healthy as well. Same way with adults.
And we don't grow out of it, or we shouldn't grow out of it.
We shouldn't.
Do adults need to play?
Of course.
Why?
Don't you play?
I consider this play.
Well, it's wonderful if your work is so enjoyable that it is like play.
It is.
That's awesome.
For me, yes.
Yes.
In fact, I have not had a day of vacation, since March 31st of 2004. So my work, what I do is just a hobby. It's fun. It's fulfilling. But very few people are that fortunate and that blessed. Although many could be if they would change their attitude toward their work, maybe, but or find another job. But
that's right.
I wonder sometimes, and maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but the emphasis on academics, what is it, STEM. Does that truly equip you to be a successful adult?
STEM, science, technology, engineering, and
math.
What's the other one?
Math.
Yes, math. Yes. And what was your question? Does that equip you to do what?
Okay. Well,
to be successful.
Then why? In other words, let's just do away with chorus. Let's do away with art. Let's do away with humanities. Now let's keep football. But what if education was only education? History is really on the chopping block because it's actually a social science if you get right down to it. Art, drama, chorus.
But I would disagree. All of those things are part of education.
Well, I know, but the way we're going is, the classic literature. Mark Twain, for goodness sakes. All this stuff is being set aside to stay competitive in some world arena on the STEM, focusing only on STEM topics. I think we're compromising. I don't think we're helping our students and our children become self-sufficient adults. They are becoming trainable adults that can be hired by certain industries only.
Well, we're all individuals, and sometimes we tend to forget that and want to educate all children exactly the same way, but we're all different and we have different strengths, we have different abilities, and we'll have different careers. But I would argue that we need to educate the whole child, and that includes those subjects that you have mentioned that might be on the chopping block. We need to learn about history. If we don't know history, we're condemned to repeat the same mistakes that our forefathers and foremothers made. We need to know our past, where we came from, who we are.
Let me give you some testimony.
Sorry, what?
Let me offer some testimony. This didn't happen once. This has happened with two individuals that I work with on the weekend. I would ask a question: how much fuel is in your vehicle? Oh, it's okay. You gave me an answer to a question I did not ask. I asked you how much fuel is in your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I would get answers like, it's on that third mark.
Which third mark? Third mark going down?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like
which one? Starting at the right or the left? My point is this, and it's troubling, it's sad, but it's not their fault. They did not know what 3/4 of a tank meant. I had to literally explain, and they said, well, I'm not good with fractions. I said, you don't have to be good with fractions to know what 3/4 is. I literally had just this past weekend or the weekend before, but recently, had to explain to a young lady a dollar, 3/4, 75%, 3 marks on, and I can't blame the person, because it's like, I told her, I said, if I were the principal, you wouldn't have gotten past the 4th grade. Not knowing what 3/4 of a tank means, I think that we are doing a disservice to our young people, and for what gain I cannot determine, and I'm not an educational expert, but I am a sociologist and a psychologist. I majored in both, and they didn't know basic history. What happened on December 7th?
1941.
Yeah, they are totally unaware of history at all. Ask them questions: who was U.S. Grant? They don't know. Hitler, was he a good guy or a bad guy? They don't know. And I am. It's scary, but it's like, well, what do you know?
If you don't know fractions and you don't know history, what do you know?
They're poor. I'm just, it's distressing. It's grieving, but I can't blame the child. I can't blame the person. They were given a pass and pushed, and just pushed up the ladder, and they come out with a high school degree, and they could not. I don't think they could follow here's one. I bet they couldn't follow a recipe on the side of a food container.
But they might not. But it's a combination of factors that have caused it. It's not just the child. It's not just the teacher. It's not just the child's parents. It's not just the change in curriculum or the expectations of society, or trying to compete with foreign countries who are building things and getting ahead of us, and we're worried about keeping up with the competition. It's a whole lot of factors. But you're right. It's our children.
I've lost track of the time, and we're out of it.
I know. So, I've been glancing at it. I don't want to run into this time.
Let me give you a minute to wrap it up, and then I'll dismiss us.
Well, you brought up some really good points, and I thank you. I just would like to end with the fact that we all contribute to the education and to the well-being of our children. We all have a part, and if I could just say one thing in regard to be good if we could, what is something that we can do?
Okay. I clicked the mouse there accidentally. Sorry
That's all right.
about that. Okay,
Okay.
well, Miss Catherine, thanks for joining us tonight. Can't wait for the series, whether it's 4 or 5. Can't wait to hear all about it. Here,
Okay.
there
Thank
we
you.
go. There you have the view high atop the Eagle's Nest broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv. Be not concerned about things over which you have no control. Because one thing is certain, at the bottom of the hour, I say it's certain, it is certainly planned. All the arrangements have been made for J.D. Winninger to come give us a report and give us a quick tour around across W. So I've got to kind of take down this studio and get all the furniture set up at the other place, and get things ready. So on the way out, I will tip my hat and ask you well, I'm not asking you, I'm asking you to ask yourself these 2 questions. First, what is the boldest thing you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second question is, well, when was that? We in trouble, folks. We're going to need some courageous leadership. So I hope none of us will be satisfied with our answer to either of those 2 questions.